I was in an area, we had the elders coming to teach with us that day. And I think it was when I first got to that area. It was still in Kratu, and so we took the elders to this place, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's drunk. Like, don't go in there," because he was a really mean, belligerent drunk. And so I had no idea who he was anyway. So the elders were like, "You know what? We'll take this one. Like, you guys stay outside until like we know that it's safe." We're like, "Totally fine. Like, we can go talk to other people on the street. We know them. Not a big deal." And so, like, the elders are sitting there talking, and he comes to the door, and he's just like yelling all of this stuff, and we're like, okay, we need to leave. And so like we turn around to leave, and his mom's like trying to hold him back. And of course he's like 45 and she's like 80. She's not gonna be able to. And he's like, we start walking down the street, and he just like comes out the door, and luckily we had about a block head start, but he just like start running after us. And so we're just like booking up this hill, and all of a sudden like he stops, and he's just like, "Go away, Satan." He's like, "Vai Satanas." And we're just like, really? And I really wanted to turn around and say something, but you know, he's drunk. It's not gonna do anything. And so that was hilarious. And so the next one, we were leaving a less active's house, and in Brazil, like, you have to watch out, because sometimes in some, like, every part of the sidewalk, like, the person who lives in like that house, it's actually part of the property, so they can have it however they want. So most of the time it's nice and uniform. Sometimes it's like this much difference between one spot and the next. And so, and then sometimes they're just like part of the ramp to go into the garage, and then a ditch, like big enough, just big enough for a foot to fall through, and then the rest of the driveway. And so you're saying goodbye to this less active. And we'd left her house tons of times. And like I always told myself mentally, I'm like, watch out for the ditch, because I was really accident prone in the mission. Like I'd fall down the stairs and run into trees and signs and all that stuff. And so I was like, every time I was like, watch out for the ditch. And this one time I was walking, and I didn't remind myself, and we turned around, we're like, see you later. And my foot like went perfectly in the hole. And so like it went in, and I turned and I face planted on the Book of Mormon that I had in my hand. And you remember I told you everybody sits in the street in Brazil at night. And so the whole entire street was out there, and like they just watched me face plant. And so walking down the street, it was a really good way to make some contacts. Nothing ever came of it, but they're like, "Are you okay? Like, is everything fine? Like, what happened? Who are you?" And I'm just like, "I'm good, guys. It's just a bruise and a little bit of a bruised ego." We lived in an area, like 2 gangs divided it. And so one gang took care of the robbing on this side, and the other one took care of the robbing on this side, right? So they had the 2 gangs on each side, and we stopped by our investigator's work, and we picked her up because like we had to walk the same area anyway, and we wanted to talk to her about her baptism. And so she was telling us, she's like, "Yeah, like I got robbed." And we're like, "Oh, like that's really horrible, but you know, it's kind of commonplace." And so she was like, "Yeah, I got robbed in one area, and then some guy went and robbed that guy and gave me back my purse." He's like, "You don't rob in my area." And so like that was kind of the dynamic. And we had always wondered why we'd never had any trouble, because like we knew that Heavenly Father protected us, but like we're like, okay, it's like something is happening, like there's a reason, because like usually you run into like situations where you're just like, okay, I need to get out of here. And like we were walking down a street, and we'd only walked down it one time before because we just got an funky feeling. And she was like, "Well, you see that house right over there?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, what about it?" She's like, "Oh, well, that's like a drug lord's house." And we're like, "Oh, well, that kind of explains it." And she's like, "Yeah, like, you guys want to know why you have never had any problems here?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, that would be great." I'm like, "Well, besides the fact that Heavenly Father, you know, loves us and protects us." She's like, "Well, they just know not to mess with the Jesus people. And so they just tell everybody, like, don't mess with the missionaries or something bad is going to happen." And so, like, I think the transfer after, they might have had, like, one issue with somebody almost robbing them. But, like, we could walk pretty much wherever we wanted, and like they were just like, "No, you don't mess with the missionaries, like something bad's gonna happen to you." It was really cool. I was just like, "Oh, that's so awesome." And so they like there's certain parts where that happens, and then there's other parts where people are just like, "No, those are the Jesus people, you don't touch them." So it depends on where you are. I think one of my most favorites was when we baptized Louisa. Because she just knew it was true, and like she was so ready to get baptized. Another one was when there was this one girl we were teaching in an area we'd just gotten there, and she's so stubborn. She's one of my favorites. But everything we taught her, like the elders had been teaching her, and they didn't tell her that sisters were coming. So we got there, she's like, "Well, where's the elders?" And we're like, "Okay, we'll explain it to her." And she was so stubborn. She was just like, "No, I'm not going to do it. Why should I do it? No. Like, I'm not going to pray about it. I'm not going to read my scriptures. And we got so fed up with it. I'm like, why were the elders teaching her? And so we're like, okay, if she doesn't come to church on Sunday, like, we're done teaching her. We're not going to. And she showed up to church on Sunday, and we're like, you make no sense. Like, you don't want to do anything, but you'll come to church. She's like, well, I feel like I have to for my sisters, because the elders had originally invited her sisters. And so she's like, I feel like I have to for them. And we're like, okay, fine, whatever, Damiana, like, do your thing. And so we went back to visit her that week, and just to see what was up. And we happened to have the APs with us, because they'd come to, like, see how our area was and see how we were adjusting. And they went in, and one of them, he was like, you know what, let me talk to her. He's like, let me just do a baptismal interview just to see. And she came out, and he's like, okay, the papers are work's all filled out, like, she can be baptized. And we were so mad at her. We were just like, Damiana, what the heck? Like, you won't do anything for us. And, like, she'd been getting better in the past. Like, apparently she'd been reading her scriptures and praying without telling us. And we were so mad. We're like, okay, so you'll get baptized because the elders asked you, but not because we asked you. And she's like, well, I was going to tell you, but they got to me first. And we're like, okay, well, that makes a little bit better. And so, like, it was within a week or two of us getting there, and she, like, made a complete turnaround. And I just love seeing people's faces as they come out of, like, the baptismal waters. And she is so great. And I think the whole entire teaching experience was just, like, very spiritual for me, because we got to see her from, like, the very start to when she got baptized. And now, like, her boyfriend's on a mission, but they're planning to get married in the temple when they come back, and she's the only member, and she still goes, even though, like, her whole entire family makes fun of her for going to church. Like, she still does what she needs to because she knows it's true. It's so great. There's so many. And I think another one was just learning to love the people. Like, that was definitely, like, feeling the love that Heavenly Father has for them, because as you teach them and as you meet them, like, that love just grows. And, like, you look back on it and you're like, how did I ever survive my life without loving this person this much? It's really cool. One of my companions randomly threw, she was, like, talking about the atonement, and she's like, in Portuguese, like, she was saying, I know that the atonement is true, but instead of saying expiação, which is atonement, she was like, eu sei que the atonement pode te ajudar. And I just looked at her, I was like, sister, they don't understand you. And she's like, well, what did I say? And I was like, you spoke English, that's what you did. So, like, I think my biggest language mistake, we were teaching this, in my first area, there was this less active, and it was her cousin, I think. Somehow they were related, or else they just called themselves cousins. But he would sometimes come sit in the lessons, and so we decided to start teaching him. And we were teaching him about the law of chastity, and I don't know if my companion just thought it would be funny to have me teach it, or if she really wanted me to practice. And so she was sitting on the couch, like 3 feet away, talking to this less active, like listening to me teach this lesson to make sure I got it. She's like, sister, it'll be good practice, like, you got it, you can do it, and I'll help you with whatever you need. And in Portuguese, the word for boy, or the word for girlfriend, is namorada, and for boyfriend is namorado. So, like, it's just the O and the A that's different. And I remember sitting down, and we got to the part, like, we were talking about, like, not, like, no sexual relations before marriage. And so I was just like, do you have a girlfriend? And in my mind, that's what I asked. And all of a sudden I see, like, his face just, like, he looks at me kind of funny. And my companion just starts busting up laughing on the couch, and so does this less active. And I was like, what did I say? And they're like, namorada. And I was like, that's what I said. And, like, they were just looking at me, and I was like, oh no, I just asked him if he had a boyfriend. Oh no, this is really bad, because, like, this is a 15-year-old kid. And I was like, oh shoot, what do I do? And all this is going on in, like, 10 seconds, and I'm just like, oh no, I really just did that. And I was like, namorada, do you have a girlfriend? And he's like, no, and I don't have a boyfriend either. And he just looked at me, and I just, like, my face turned bright red. I don't think they let me live that down for, like, a good 2 or 3 weeks, but it was funny now. But then I was just like, I can't believe I just did that, because I studied for it that day, and it was bad. But it's really funny now. But I'm just like, ever since then, I'm like, okay. And, like, we'd go to lesson, and I would, like, practice saying the words. I'm like, okay, namorada, namorado, like, girl, boy. He never did get baptized. And later he ended up telling us that he didn't know if he was a boy or a girl, so I felt justified in it. But still, it was Yeah. And then another sister I lived with, she also said, instead of saying, I know the church is true, which is verdadero, she said, I know the church is green, which is verde. So she like was bearing her testimony to somebody. She's like, yeah, I know the church is green. And I'm just like, sister, you crack me up. I would probably say learning to see others how Heavenly Father sees them, like to see their potential and accept them for who they are. And then also learning like to be a spouse, because like you have to learn how to be with somebody for 24 hours a day, and you have to learn their ups and their downs and how to respond to them, and like the things that make them angry and the things that make them happy. And it was really interesting to see like how like living the gospel just like help that to flow, because like everything you do, like you study your scriptures, you pray, like you worry about these people, you teach these people, like you pray for them, and those are all the like, and you become a better person in that process, and those are all the things that like you're going to do with your future family. Like you're going to want to read your scriptures, you're going to want to pray, you're going to want to do what's best for them and like pray for them and worry about them and teach them things. And like you gain all of these attributes that can be applied to that. And so it's pretty amazing how Heavenly Father like just intertwines the gospel into everything that we do. I was an kind of in your shell type of person before my mission, and I didn't really do my hair, I didn't do my makeup, I didn't have my ears pierced, like I didn't wear necklaces. I was just like, I'm here to teach the gospel, that's it, that's all I need to do. And in Brazil it's a lot about appearance, and like as well as who you are, but like they base a lot of judgments on appearance. And so like I feel I got my ears pierced on my mission. And I started doing my hair and makeup, so I feel like that was a huge step for me, like a huge change. Mostly at least the ears were at this insistence of my companion, and I finally did it just so she would stop asking me to do it. And I'd kind of always wanted to do it, but I wasn't going to tell her that. And so like physically, like I started doing all of that. I lost about 30 pounds. Like I just got into really good shape, but spiritually, oh my gosh, there are so many changes that happened with that. Like, cause before I was just like, it's my way or the highway, and like, I'm fine, I don't need to talk to people. I'm going on a mission. Like, you learn how to talk to people, you learn how to love them, you learn how to relate to them. Like, you were talking to so many different people every single day. And so it just like helps you become like, and kind of like an extrovert, and you're just like out there and you're talking to them. And so like I feel like I gained a lot of interpersonal skills. I think the biggest one was learning how to love the people. That was a challenge for me, because when I got to the mission I was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna love these people, like I don't even know these people. And then just like the first time we would talk to people, like you would feel that love for them. You're like, this is what Heavenly Father feels for them, like this is how He sees them. And I also gained like a lot of study skills, but I think that's the biggest, is just people skills and learning how to be a personable missionary, like how to be one that people can relate to and one that people want to talk to. Like there was a girl in one of my areas, I remember I felt really special because like she would talk to lots of missionaries, like we were all really good friends. And I remember one night she came out of the church and we had talked. She had an issue. She wanted to really date this boy that we were teaching, and so like she brought us to his house. Like he never ended up getting baptized, which broke her heart because she wants a temple marriage. And so like she's totally fine now. Like she has a boyfriend, not a big deal. But I remember like I had shared some of my experiences with her about like a boyfriend before the mission, and she like we kind of just bonded over that. And she came out of the church this one night and she was having an issue. Like still kind of struggling to get over that, and she came outside and we just happened to be like in front of the church, like it wasn't even a plan to stop there, and she's like, I wish Sister Felber was here, I really want to talk to her. And I was just like, oh hey, I'm right here. And it was really good to just like see that the people trust you enough to come to you with their problems. Like we're no way counselors or anything, but like knowing that you trust them enough to share some of your personal life, like they'll do it back, and that's like it just builds a lot of trust. It was mostly hot. It was usually around 95 degrees all year round because we're like right under the equator. But I think the craziest day we were we were in Fortaleza. It was my first area. And you know the movies where like it's like perfectly sunny and then like the rain just comes in and it just pours. So that's what happened. We thought it was going to stop, but it didn't stop for like 2 or 3 days. And we went on an exchange because it was either my companion or the other sister's companion wasn't feeling good. And so the other one was kind of sick too. So they stayed together and we went on a division, which was great because I always had so much fun with this sister. She was American, so we got to have our little English talks. And the buses were on strike. And so it was like pouring down rain. The buses were on strike and like there was a lot of water in the streets. Not a ton, but a lot. And so we were going to lunch and we ended up having to walk like an hour and a half to get to this lunch appointment. And the water was probably like up to our shins, which, you know, isn't a big deal. And then it just kept raining and kept raining. And we were on lunch and we ended up staying there for like 2 hours or so waiting to see if it would stop and like letting our clothes dry out because we were soaked. And we get out and the water is up to our knees. And so we were just walking through the streets. And it's the only day in my mission that I can remember that it flooded, but like umbrellas didn't really help. Like we had them, but it was like whatever, we're already soaking wet anyway. And so like we were just wading through the water, like this knee-high water, and talking to all these people on the street. Like, oh, what are you doing? Like, why are you out in the weather? And we ended up going home early because, you know, there was nothing to be done because everybody was inside anyway. And like you didn't really want to open the door because all this water would come rushing in. But like, I'm pretty sure there was probably some sewer water in there. Don't really want to know. And like, there's just trash floating in the water. We saw a couple of water snakes in there. And so it was pretty crazy. But like we left in the morning, it was raining and it stopped long enough for us to walk to lunch. And then it just poured like the rest of the day. And so we were just soaked and we saw these like walls with cockroaches all over them. And it's one of my favorite pictures. We have a picture next to that wall. Just love your mission president and his wife. Like, just do what they ask you to do. And if you're a sister, it's really good to, you know, take the mission president's wife out for ice cream on Mother's Day or like P-Day afterwards, or, you know, send them cookies or something, you know, just do nice things for them. Because then they, well, they'll love you anyway, but it's really fun. Because then they come up to you like, so, any more cookies? Just things like that. Just do something for them. Let them know that you love them. Or you can, you know, just call and tell them. One of the two. Craziest food I've ever eaten was probably this soup called mugunza. And if you're in one of the richer areas, like, it usually has more vegetables and like it has like intestines and stuff in it, but they usually cut it up really small, so like you can't taste it. And I've eaten that like that and it's way good. I had no issue with it. But in the poorer areas, they don't have a lot of money, so it's usually just like beans and whatever type of meat they throw in there. And so I remember one time, I'm not going to give names because I love this family way too much, but it was his birthday, so we went over and we knew they wanted to feed us, but we couldn't stay for the party because we had appointments and we really weren't supposed to. Like, we'll stop by and say hi for like 5-10 minutes. And so we'd eaten like a popsicle right before, and we go and we stop and we're like, you know, happy birthday, like we can't stay, but we just wanted to stop and like say congratulations, like pada bings, and like, we love you, you're great. And he's like, okay, well, bummer you can't stay, but let me go get my wife. And we should have seen it coming, but he brought out 2 plates of this soup, and you know, it's rude to reject it, so we had to sit down and eat it. And like, we just looked, and I still love them to death. Like, they still cook really good food, but we were just looking and it was beans. And I don't know if it was like intestines or heart valves or whatever was in it, but like we took a bite and like it just squirted this waxy stuff out into our mouth and like coated our mouth.